All right, we're back to break it all down. We've got 3 more games to get through in this one. Let's start with a big one, Lisa. It's Chicago Red Stars versus San Diego Wave FC. These two playing at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois, as part of a doubleheader. And you can catch it all on Twitch? ? But listen, let's make some picks. Let's make some picks.
I want to hear your thoughts on this because Chicago has been hot. They've been hot. And this is at Soldier Field. What are your thoughts on this match?
I'm hyped for it. I'm really hyped for it. There's something about Chicago when they get an opportunity to sort of play to a big event. I'll just say this is a franchise that has, we've seen in the past, they've sort of had moments where they've maybe plucked out a game and they've put their effort towards it to try to make it a big event. We saw really cool turnout sort of post 2019 World Cup. It was the first game back for a lot of World Cup players on both sides of the pitch. It was Red Stars versus Carolina. Almost 18,000 in Bridgeview. So it was really cool to see that. And that was just on their own. There wasn't a doubleheader, I believe, that was involved in that or anything, if I remember correctly. But this isn't the first time that this team has sort of, played a doubleheader with the Fire, and those tend to have, some pretty cool turnouts. And the Red Stars tend to really get up for those kinds of matches. So I'm excited for everyone coming back. I mean, I'm excited for the possibility of seeing the return of Alex Morgan to club play on the San Diego Wave side of things. Obviously, in the Chicago Red Star side of things, Alyssa Nair and Mal Pugh back in the mix, Bianca St. George's as well. So I'm a little curious as to what we're going to see, honestly, from Casey Stoney's side, because again, we started the top of this episode talking about the trade and kind of player for player move there. What are we going to see from this back line? Are we going to see the insertion of Naomi Girma once more for San Diego? If we do, I think that's very smart, or this is a player who can absolutely has been going up against Mal Pugh all during CONCACAF, quite frankly, right? When the teams sort of have their scrimmages against each other in terms of preparation for those types of matches. I'm of the belief that the Red Stars will probably rise to the occasion and play the moment. I'm going to have them picking up a very narrow victory in this one. But when I'm looking at these defenses, Lisa, I think it's really going to come down to that. I think coming off of that sort of lopsided scoreline that the Red Stars had in Houston against the Dash, we're talking a 4-1 loss that snapped that 9-game undefeated streak. A little, I won't say curious, but the timing of it, I think, sort of made sense. That's a long time to go undefeated. Streaks are meant to be broken, right? And we sort of saw a combination, I think, of things in that game. We saw Ebony Salmon finally have the sort of breakthrough game, right? Like we've talked about it. We said sometimes you need a little bit of adjustment once you make a move from one team to the next. And I think Ebony Salmon had a couple of games under her belt with the Dash, and then finally was able to get that breakthrough. And I think you also saw a combination of maybe the fact that there was a break, ahead of some teams. I think we saw some of the Red Stars players kind of look a little lackadaisical in that match, quite frankly. A little bit of senioritis, I think, is maybe what we could refer to it as. And that's, now that the break is over, reset button has been hit. We're going to get to see what comes down to this. The last time these two teams played was very early in the season. And even then, they sort of played each other kind of evenly as well. But San Diego coming out on top of that one. But when I'm looking at this one, I'm going to give the edge to Chicago Red Stars. How about you?
I agree. I give Chicago the win in this one for so many of the factors that you mentioned off the pitch, or rather on this specific pitch. Being at Soldier Field, having a doubleheader with the Fire, this is a huge game for the city of Chicago, for the soccer community in Chicago, and these players know that, and they want to perform. It's almost like if they do well in this game and they put on a show and they make it entertaining, the likelihood of getting more and more fans then coming to Bridgeview is higher. So it's And these players know that. They're aware of that. They're aware of the type of stage that they are stepping onto. The return of players from international duty is huge for both of these sides, frankly. The players, neither side was missing a large quantity of players, but both were missing big quality in the players that were gone for the last month or so. But San Diego Wave, they're still number one. This is going on week 11. Well, 10 game days in the NWSL, where they are at number one in the standings. Now they're coming off of back-to-back winless matches. So the slump, if you want to call it, that San Diego is in, where they haven't won in 2 games, is a slump in some sense based on how this team is doing, yet they still remain at the top because they're squeaking out 1 point here, 1 point there. Chicago, as you mentioned, that's a pretty rough loss they're coming off of, 4-1 to Houston. But there's something about Chicago where they find the back of the net, right? If you look across the regular season games, they've only been shut out once in this regular season, and that was by Washington Spirit early in June. So they score. Chicago finds a way to score. Sometimes it's in a 4-1 loss against Houston. Sometimes it's in a 1-0 win, but they find a way to find the back of the net. This game, I'm going to give it to Chicago, but I could also see it very well ending in a draw. Maybe a 1-1 draw, maybe a 0-0, very, very narrow. Ultimately, I think Chicago defensively is going to come out with the upper hand. Having Lisanero back in net, having the back 3 that they've been playing consistently with, and going up against the San Diego team that they know and that they can scout pretty well, with Alex Morgan in that front line. Sophia Jakobsen probably will not be back. Not entirely sure about that one, though. But ultimately, I give Chicago this win over San Diego. I want to see them jump the standings a little bit.
I love it. Music to my ears. We'll see how it shakes out and what these 2 teams provide at Soldier Field as the backdrop. Look, 2 more games to get through, Lisa. Let's talk about New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Houston Dash. Who do you got in this one and why?
This one's tough for me. I'm not going to lie, because both of these sides have had so many inconsistencies throughout this season. In terms of standing, Houston is higher up. They're number 4 right now in the standings. They've got 18 points. They're coming off that big win over Chicago, but there's so many ups and downs for this Houston side. I think the return, or rather the jump start of Ebony Salmon for this Houston side has been huge for them. If that can continue to be a spark for this Houston side, I think they will continue to climb throughout the rest of this regular season. Now, a team like Gotham, they've struggled. They're number 9 in the standings. I know some people in our chat are asking about Gotham. Is this the second half of the season where Scott Parkinson can turn things around and get things going? I don't think so, and I haven't seen it. There's no evidence that proves that Gotham is going to be a team that somehow bangs out win after win after win every single week, climbs the standings, finishes in the top 4. Historically, Gotham is a team that has done that. Now, this year, I just haven't seen enough from the Gotham side to be able to do that. They're coming off of a really tough 5-0 loss to Portland. However, Gotham is hosting this one. I mean, that was a brutal loss.
Ugly.
5 goals against Portland. That's one of the things that if Houston can get on this scoring run, right? If Ebony Salmon can find the right pockets, if Shea Groom can get on the ball, if their defense and Naughton and Prysock can be locked down and Jane Campbell can be really good, Houston can be a team that just dominates. But they lack so many consistencies. Now, they've gotten a new coach coming in. They've had time with him. They've had training with him. So between these 2 sides, I think Houston's going to take the win, even though this match is being played in Jersey and Gotham is hosting it. There's not enough evidence for me to see Gotham come out with a win in this match.
Listen, I'm going back and forth between these 2 teams, and I was settling in on Houston for a number of reasons. Looking at this Gotham side, I think you could try to make an argument that they've got a couple games in hand. It's a similar argument you can make for North Carolina. Quite frankly, they've also got several games in hand, as they sort of look ahead to this second half of the season. They find themselves in maybe a little bit of different positions compared to some other teams who have, 12 or 13 games under their belt. But looking at some of their break or some of their July, I should say, without their big impactful players for Gotham, like a Christy Mewis or Margaret Purse or an Ife Onumanu. I just didn't see, like that, maybe that switch turn on for Gotham. I thought, maybe this is the time where you see a little bit of a difference. Sometimes a team needs a little bit of a shakeup like that. And sometimes, having those kind of key players that you rely on be away maybe forces other, players to step up in different ways or provides new opportunities for players who weren't used to seeing extended minutes. And just based on the couple games that we saw, I just wasn't convinced of that. I mean, yeah, a 5-0 blowout against the Thorns did not show a lot for me. Quite frankly,
but they've been nearly blown out like that before. Early in the season, San Diego beat them 4-0.
So I was gonna say that's not unfamiliar. That's not unfamiliar territory for that team. But even that win against Racing, was a 2-1 win, and I don't know if I'm gonna be, in the second half of the season, I just don't know if I'm gonna be impressed when a bottom half team beats another bottom half team. Yeah. That's not something that's going to teach me something new about a team.
We've raised our bar, our standard higher.
That's not something that's going to teach me something new about a team. That's not going to, immediately make me be like, oh yes, this is going to be the catalyst in which, this propels them forward. Because they got that win. It was a 2 bottom half teams, going, and then they went and got a 5-0 whooping from Portland. So there's been a lot of inconsistencies for this Gotham team. And I imagine that with the return of some players, we'll continue to see that in this game against Houston. Houston also is a team that I don't think is a team that you can look at and say that they're scared on the road. That's the complete opposite of Houston. They're not intimidated when they go away. And that's I think an important other part about this, I think, that we're thinking at. So this team had the return of Maria Sanchez, back into the mix. And then they had Ebony Salmon have that sort of breakthrough game, the type of game that you wanted to have for this Houston Dash side, because she was looking for a little bit of a fresh start. And being able to sort of see that performance, and hopefully she'll be able to pick up on or build on that kind of momentum that Houston had against Chicago. And I imagine being on the road isn't going to maybe shake that from this team. So I'm going with Houston in this one as well. So I think they're going to get the win. I don't know if we're going to see another blowout like we saw. I feel like Gotham doesn't want that to happen 2 weeks in a row. But again,
I agree. I don't think
teams in different stages of the table, and Gotham could come out and play with some desperation, and we could see a very entertaining match in that capacity. But again, I just don't know if they have enough to get the win in this one.
I agree. I mean, I said Houston as well. And in terms of a dominating win or a big score disparity, I don't see that on either side. Gotham doesn't want to go 5-0 against Portland and then a multi-goal scoreless loss against Houston back-to-back weeks. And I also don't think Houston can do that, right? They went 4-1 against Chicago. Can they score another multi-goal game? Yeah, maybe 2. But I just, in terms of consistency, if a lot of the pressure is being held on one person's shoulders, that doesn't work. They've got to share the wealth a little bit more. So I still have Houston, but not a giant win by any means.
Yeah, same here. We'll see how it shakes out. Last one for us on NWSL picks. We've got Kansas City Current versus Orlando Pride. Lisa, I just want to throw it back real quick, because you and I, when we did our offseason, very early predictions, we said, listen, we want to keep our eye on Kansas City Current. We think they could be a top 5 team this year. And you know what? At the timing of this preview, they're sitting at number 5 right now in the standings. We do month-to-month standings. So after this weekend slate of games, we'll go through everything and see how it shook out during July. But right now, just wanted to point that out as they get ready to host Orlando Pride. Again, another one of these teams who are going to have to take a look at each match in front of them and try to pick up as many points as they can. But Lisa, I have a feeling that we might be leaning similar ways in this one. I'll let you go first.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Giving a shout out back to our early predictions. We said Kansas City was going to be high. We also thought Orlando was going to be pretty low. And they're in the second half of the table, but they're only at 8 right
They're
now, right?
fighting.
They're hanging right there. They are hanging in position. They're at 8. Gotham is at 9. Racing Louisville 10. Washington 11. North Carolina 12. So they've got some like heavy hitters underneath of them in terms of Washington, North Carolina. But Orlando hasn't. They're undefeated in their last 3 games. They're coming off of 2 ties and 1 win in their last 3. This Orlando side has been one that's been surprising, right? All of a sudden we watch a game and they sneak out an own goal here, a lot of pressure there, they get a tie here, and before you know it, Orlando's racking up points and they're sitting at the middle of the table. Now, this Kansas City side, you asked if we were going to go the same way. I'm going to go with Kansas City in this win over Orlando. It's the second meeting between these two. The first one came in like the second week of the regular season. May 14th, it was a 2-2 tie. Orlando scored first. Kansas City equalized. Then there's 2 goals in extra time. Orlando ends up winning on a penalty kick in the 90th minute plus 6-minute stoppage time. That was an incredibly exciting game early in the regular season. I don't think this game is going to be as exciting as that one. So I'm not popping my popcorn for this yet. But Kansas City, they are red hot right now. 7-game unbeaten streak. They've won their last 3 games with 2 shutouts. The other one ended up being an own goal. So they really haven't conceded a goal scored by an opponent in at least 3 games. This Kansas City side is one that when we predicted they would be at 5, top 5 in the standings, that was with Lynn Williams. That was with Sam Hewitt. That was not with CC Kaiser, who traded from Racing Louisville onto this side. And what Matt Potter has been able to do with this Kansas City side, and honestly, the Longs and the ownership and what they're building off the field has been inspiring for players, for fans, for someone like me who's really watching from the outside. And I love to watch this Kansas City side play, imposing their game as a mix of players on the pitch with the young players in Elise Bennett and Alex Herrera, Jenna Weinbrenner, Victoria Pickett in the midfield doing so well. They're just such a fun team to win. Everyone in our chat right now, KC baby, KC should win. KC,
I love it.
I'm going with KC. Me too. I'm running with the masses. Kansas City gets the win over Orlando in this one, and they're fun to watch.
Listen, the chat is bringing the energy, and I'm going to keep it going. I'm also going with Kansas City in this one. This is a team that I looked at during this month, and we wanted to see them have a couple of statement games, I think, in this time when a lot of teams were missing a lot of key players. And they did just that. They got one more in July here to sort of knock things out. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now, a 7-game unbeaten streak.
Huge.
These are all things that are very, very cool if you're on the Kansas City roster, because you're a player that's like probably riding that momentum, quite frankly, into this game against Orlando Pride. You're saying, listen, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it going. Let's keep building on this. And we're talking about all these great players who've been stepping up for Kansas City, but we got to also talk about Adi Franch. She has been just lights out for this team, especially as of late. And that alone, when looking at this matchup, Lisa, I was like, let's just say Kansas City has an off day in front of goal. Let's just say, Kristen Hamilton has an off day. CC Kaiser's like, listen, it's not in me today. Even with that, I just don't know how the attacking personnel available for Orlando get one past Adi Franch right now. That is how good she has been in net for the Current. So when I'm looking at all the above, sort of 1v1s on the pitch that we could see come to light or come to pass, I'm just giving every single advantage, quite frankly, to the Current in this one. And we'll see how it shakes. Usually when it sort of looks like or has that feeling, sometimes the opposition comes out there and sort of smacks us in the mouth and say, not today. So I'm excited to see a competitive match between these two sides, because again, we're looking at 2 teams in different phases of the table. You're talking about a 4-point swing right now for the Pride behind Angel City, I believe, to sort of start climbing and narrowing things to 7th and 6th place, et cetera, et cetera. So they are a team that I'm looking at the bottom half that are going to try to come out, maybe play with a sense of urgency. And now if we see them come out in this game and I don't see that from the first whistle, it's going to be a pretty long day, I think, for Orlando Pride. But yeah, I'm with you, Lisa, in this one. Looking at everything in front of us and sort of what the Current have been doing on the pitch and some of the really strong individual performances that we have seen during this month, I'm going Kansas City all the way.